Hi everybody, thanks for coming to this webinar, simply called Office Protect. I'm Guillaume Boisvert. Let's start with a few housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded. If you have to fall off, go do something else. You'll be sent a recording in the next roughly 48 hours. If you have questions, please use the software, put them into the Q&A section. I do love questions. I'm hoping they'll have a few by the time I get to the end of this webinar. Today, very simple subject, my current favorite subject, Office Protect. So we'll talk just a little bit about, we'll give some context. There's a lot of people in the webinar, and some of the people here are new to Office Protect, and I want to make sure I give some context before I get into the new features. So basically, I'll go through the features of Office Protect. It's a fairly simple feature set, but I'll put a lot of emphasis on what's new. First, we'll start with why would you need something to secure Office 365? And we'll talk about a little bit about how it can help you in your business as a managed service provider. Like I said, if you have any questions, please do ask them. I love questions. And since this is a solo webinar, your questions will be the only conversations we have. Unless if we can get Vanya to participate a little bit.
No way, man.
I'm getting a big no, so we'll just move on. So the first question we ask when we talk about Office Protect is Office 365 secure? I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this, but the basic premise is that Office 365 is very secure. So Microsoft has made Office 365, the platform, the product, just about a Fort Knox. Like, it is a great platform when it comes to security. Their first consideration is to their own security, meaning they don't want somebody to break into the infrastructure that runs Office 365, things like that. Don't want people to have access to multiple tenants information, things of that nature. The other thing that they've done, and that's the part they're improving all the time, is they're giving more and more control to the people that are in Office 365. So there's more and more features that are security oriented, more and more controls, audit logs, things of that nature. They're improving all the time, the platform, and I have to say, generally, between having an Exchange server on premise and being in Office 365, you're generally more secure in Office 365 in the cloud, because you benefit from the enterprise grade security. Unless you are a very, very large organization, you probably don't have the means to put together security like they do in Office 365. That being said, there are still concerns around the security of Office 365 when it comes to your organization or your client's organization. Things like spam, things like phishing. You can see the stats here. Most emails are crap, pardon my French. Most emails will either be spam or phishing or malware or some kind of very good offer that you should click. Absolutely no, don't do that. That is something that you have to protect against. The other thing that we see a lot in Office 365 is it has become the business critical application for most small, medium businesses. How many businesses do you know that are run through Excel and Exchange, for example? So we found that, and this is a Sky High Network, not survey, but investigation. 58% of a business sensitive data in the cloud is stored in Microsoft Office documents. 17% of files found in OneDrive and SharePoint contain sensitive information. And that is mind-boggling when we think of all the files that are stored in OneDrive. Like, this include like kitten pictures and all that, and still 17% of them have critical information or sensitive information in it. And then there's a market penetration of Office 365. One of the reasons that security of Office has become such a key topic is because everybody uses Office. 91% of businesses have at least 91% of businesses with at least 100 users are using Office 365. So that is the whole chain of event. Basically, a system or platform or technology, whatever it is, becomes very, very popular with users, and then it becomes very, very popular with evil people or hackers and all that. And then security sort of catches up. And we're in that phase. We have to catch up with the security. So I'll move quickly here. I want to keep some time to talk about Office 365. Ransomware, everybody is known and talked about. It's a $75 billion a year business. There's attacks now that are very, very targeted to Office 365. For example, this was in 2017 knock attack. It was basically a very slow moving, very discreet attack on Office 365 system accounts. And it would do what we call the password stuffing. So instead of doing brute force, which is trying a billion password to hack one account, they would try to low, quote unquote, number of password into a whole bunch of accounts. And that is very, very much harder to detect. The other thing to keep in mind, and it is very much addressed by Office Protect, is insider threats. So we often think of the stereotypical hacker as being a guy in his basement with a hoodie. That is the picture that we were being sold by a company that sell security software. The other picture that is recently being sold more and more is the nation state attacking you. So sorry for the stereotype, but that is what is being used in marketing. The Chinese or the Russians wanting to break into your organization. When it comes to small, medium businesses, that is a bit of a stretch. There is a very simple notion in security that is the effort has to be worth the result, which means that if somebody's going to go and target your company in particular, it has to have a return that is worth it. So I have to say, if somebody with some talent, like with some know-how, decides they're going to break into your organization in some way, and they invest the time, like they study your org structure, who works where, like what their habits are, what service they're using, they IP scan all your stuff, and they start investigating like the software to use and everything, and they start doing very targeted phishing attack, like spear phishing attacks and all that, chances are somebody's going to click on something they shouldn't. But it is not the reality of most small, medium businesses. And I think even the mid-market, that's not usually the case. I've often divided the type of companies into two groups. The people that have compliance requirements, and those are often like research and development firm, banking, financial services, legal, all that good stuff. They have a budget. They need a lot of security. You should talk to them about the advanced SKUs, and they start pretty affordable, but the advanced SKUs for security around Office 365. The other group is everybody else, and that is the majority of SMBs, which are not bound to those requirements, and they're looking for a cheaper solution. So let's talk about that cheaper solution. What is Office Protect? Basically, the idea with Office Protect for us at SherWeb is we identified a gap in the knowledge or the time allowance around security of Office 365 for small, medium businesses, especially when they're served by an MSP partner, which is the majority of our partners. The idea was that to do a proper job around security of Office 365, you have to have either sell more expensive SKUs of Office 365, or you have to invest an inordinate amount of time. And both those things were, and this wasn't an opinion, we could look at our stats and see it, this wasn't done by most. The problem around that is that not taking care of the security of Office 365 is like not taking care of the security of your internet connection or having an antivirus on your desktop or your endpoints. It makes no sense because so much critical information is now in Office 365. So the idea was to build a simple to use, affordable, that made sense for the small, medium businesses up to mid-market as a way to raise the baseline security of Office 365. This Office Protect that I'll present is not there to replace the more advanced SKUs of Office 365. If you have people that need it, you should sell them. For example, EMS E3 or sell them an E5, even an E3 license, which includes a lot of feature around security, and they're very useful and they're very good. Stuff like conditional access and all that stuff is very interesting. The idea with Office Protect is really as a tool for you to put in your tool belt and to use on everybody. And we made that simple and affordable. The idea for it is to save you time. Let's go in depth a little bit more around what it does. So basically it does three things. Call it four, but we'll go. Keep it simple. One, it will help you apply best practice security setting. So like I said, there's a million controls in Office 365. We've identified 14 that we want to help you configure properly in a very, very easy way. So when the first thing that you would do when you access Office Protect is you would go into our settings section. You would select from one of our profile. You would review all the possible settings that we control. And then you would click apply. And then with that single click, it will apply all those security settings in one go. One of the way that we make this easy for partners is once you've done that once, you can save that profile, you can save that configuration and apply it to another tenant and then another tenant, another tenant. So the next time you do a tenant, it's even faster to apply those security settings. Even nicer than that, let's say you follow the scenario and this custom profile that you created is applied to 100 different of your clients, and you decide you want to change your security policy, because that happens. That's one of the important things of security, is it evolves all the time. You would go back into here, you would change that setting. Let's say you don't want your account to a password to expire anymore. You click it, you click save, and it will offer you to apply it to those 100 other tenants that have that same profile. So think about it, going in and changing a security setting for all your clients. How long does that take? Well, you basically have to log into each organization, go to the right control panel, and there's a lot of them, admin centers, they call them in Office 365, and you have to change those settings, apply, and then log into another account. If you have 2, 3, 5 clients, even 5, let's say 2 or 3 clients, that's not so bad. But when you have 5, 10, 100, or 1,000, that is basically a day like you're going to spend changing settings. And then the horrible thing that happens is then you don't do it, and that's the worst. So you can see here some of the settings that we have. I think right now we're up to 14 different settings you can set just from this one page. Let's go into what's new, because that's the subject of today. Actually here, yeah, that's the whole list. You can see the bottom 3. We'll spend a little bit more time on them. It helps you, like for example, the stuff that it was already doing. The first thing that it does, it turns on audit logs. That's one thing that I repeat in every presentation. If you remember nothing from my presentations, when you get an Office 365 tenant, turn on the audit logs. They're off by default, and it is the worst situation for an IT department or a managed service provider to have a security issue, and even just any issue with Office 5, going to the logs, and the first thing that you see is, hey, you should probably turn on your audit logs. That is the worst, and it is a very bad look for a partner. So first thing, even if you don't take, so I'm getting a little bit of feedback around the audio cutting up. Can you guys confirm that it's okay for everybody else? I just want to make sure that it's a single person, not everybody. It's good? Okay, I'm told it's good. All right, great, thank you. So just want to make sure. So yeah, so even if you never do business with SherWeb, which you shouldn't, but let's say you don't want to buy Office Protect, just still remember this, go in, turn on the audit logs. Honestly, all the advice that we give here around the settings that you should set, you can steal this, you have my complete permission, and then you should apply it to your tenant. It's just, eventually you'll find that this eats up a lot of time, and you'd be much better off using it with Office Protect. And I'll talk especially why through SherWeb, this is an interesting proposal. Just a quick note, well, actually I get that to the end. Let's talk about the 4 new settings that we have. If I can flip yes, here you go. So this is not a new setting, it's just a new feature. One thing that we put in recently is when you're playing with the different settings in Office Protect, we'll show you which one will actually make a change in your Office configuration. So it'll have that little helpful tag here that says change in green. When you go save and apply, those are the ones that are gonna actually make a modification in Office 365. Helpful tip is, if you're browsing through a different profile or even your own custom profile, it's a good way to quickly at a glance see what's going to change with that profile, because they will all turn green. And if you select a different profile, those will flip to green as well. So you'll get a good idea of what's changing. I don't know if I put it in. So it will also be found in monitoring, same thing. When you change things in your monitoring configuration, you'll get those tags. Other thing we changed to the user experience here is we've added a number of settings, as you'll see in just a second, and we wanted to make sure that it was easy to see as we were applying them. And it takes a while, I'll have to be honest, it takes a while to apply those settings. It's a lot faster than going through all the portals and everything to do it, but it's still like, it's not instant. So we wanted to make sure that you had clear visibility on what was happening, and if any of them fail, also you'll see it here. So when you click apply setting, you'll get a nice useful progress bar and a timer, and you'll see which ones are apply and not yet, and we'll knock on wood and say none of them will fail, but if one of them fails, you'll also see it here. I put some did you knows in my different things. I thought that was a sort of an interesting tidbit for the people that are already using, especially for the people that are already using Office Protect. The speed of response of the Microsoft API that we call for this varies from a couple of seconds to sometimes 5+ minutes for a call. It kind of explained why this can take over 5 minutes to do. Generally, they're good, but there is a high variance to the response time from Microsoft, giving you some inside ball information. Hope you appreciate it. The other thing that not a lot of people know is every tenant is limited to 3 PowerShell connections. PowerShell is what we use to make calls to change your configuration, especially around Exchange Online and things like that. What we do is we don't use all 3 because then you can use them, like it would create conflict. So we use a single one, and that also explains why it takes a while. Maybe you can give us some feedback where we're thinking about putting a configuration in to Office Protect that says how many of those 3 connections you're allowing us to use. So if you authorize 2 or 3, things will go faster. If you know you're not using them, that might be something interesting. So actual new settings. This one's a good one. I like it a lot. Flag phishing emails using staff names. So there's a lot of phishing these days. I mentioned it. It's one of the worst vector for attack. Like it is a mix of technical and social engineering, so it works pretty well. It is hard to defend because there's always a new URL, and phishing emails more and more look like good, legit emails. So we saw that we could help prevent one of them, one type of phishing, and it's the CEO scam, it's called. Basically what it will do is it will create a rule in your Exchange, and you could do this manually. I'll tell you why Office Protect has good value in a second when I'm done explaining the rule. So you could do this yourself. What we do is we create a rule in your Exchange, and it basically take all the display names. So for example, in my case, my email at SherWeb is gboisvert@sherweb.com. That's the actual email, but the display name is Guillaume Boisvert. So basically it will take your name and put it in a list, all the display name for all your organization, put it in a list. If somebody sends an email from outside your organization, so let's say it comes from Gmail, comes from some random address, but the display name is one of your staff member, it will append basically a tidbit of HTML at the top of the email saying, hey, this looks like it was sent, this is the default message, this email was sent from outside your organization, yet it is displaying the name of someone from your organization. This is often a phishing attempt. Please only interact with your email if you know the content is safe. It will not stop any email. Office Protect, generally, unless you very specifically tell it to stop things, it will simply inform, which is its goal. It is very hard to be 100% on things. One of the example is here. So some systems will create false positive for this. For example, a ticketing system will often send an email from the ticketing system. Let's say it's a cloud-based system, but it will put the name of the agent, and the agent is one of your staff members, so all those emails will be flagged. We're currently working on a way for whitelisting, but so far we thought this was pretty good because it doesn't block, it's just informative. If it triggers on the ticketing system, you can just tell people, hey, it triggers on the ticketing system, and you'll be fine. The example at the bottom is actually from this, the did you knows. We've been receiving a lot of those emails. We were already working on developing this feature, but it kind of validated the fact that it was a good idea. You can see at the bottom here, we were getting emails from Peter Kassar, quote unquote, which is our CEO here at SherWeb, but it's actually I was going to say a bad word, but it was actually a bad email. You can see it, executive, CEO, CEO.com is definitely not Peter Kassar. And it was basically asking one of our staff member, and it actually sent to almost all staff member, hey, can you contact me about something? So our staff member has been trained and they're pretty safe, so nothing happened. But it's a good example that it happens to a lot of organizations. Next thing that we're going to do with this feature is add domains as well. So if somebody would put, for example, SherWeb in the display name. So let's say it said SherWeb Peter here, and it still has executive CEO as the actual email, it would flag as well. Last little tidbit on this particular feature, most of our partners have changed the default text to include some way to contact them. So they would say, hey, if you see this, you're unsure, you can contact me. It is one of the many ways, and I'll get back to this later, but it's one of the many ways that Office Protect is there to help you show your value to your client, is to say, hey, I'm on top of things and I'm here for you. You can reach out if you have to talk to me. Let's keep moving. So block top spamming countries, a pretty simple one, but it's pretty good. Simple configuration in your Exchange online. Oh, actually, let me go back. This is bad presentation, but I'm a product manager, not a presenter. So don't hold it against me. Flag phishing email. Why would you want Office Protect? This is a good example. So if you create a rule in your Exchange, you cannot say, look at all my display name and flag them if there's an email from outside that comes. What you can do is, here's a bunch of names that I'm typing out. And if any of those names come up, then you should flag them. That means that anytime that you have a new employee or somebody that leaves, you have to go in and update that rule. That's time that you have to invest. If somebody like larger organization, 1,000 employees, like let's say they have a 20% churn rate, that's 200 people. So that's 15 people a month, a little less than that. Yeah, no, 15 people a month. So 15 times you would have to go in and change that rule, update it, blah, blah, blah. It makes no sense. So just get Office Protect to do it for you. We update it every day with a list of current staff members. The other thing is there's a limited length to the list. Again, inside ball. You can't create a big rule like a long list. You have to break it up. So we do it for you. If you have 1,000 employees, we'll break that up into 15 different rules that will just interact well with each other, and we'll keep that updated. Okay, back to my spamming countries. Vanya might have a problem with this one. So basically we looked at we created a blacklist. If you get emails from those countries, they'll just be stopped. So that was tricky. So how do you create a list of countries from which you don't want to receive emails? So obviously this is just a suggestion. You can go in and add and remove any country. So if you do a lot of business with China, obviously we would go in and remove China. The setting is off by default. Again, like I said, we try not to stop anything unless you very explicitly choose to. But the interesting question, the nice thing here to discuss is how do we create that list of country? When I started, it just felt like racism. So I just picked a country I don't like. They don't seem trustworthy. I'll put them on the list. That's not it at all. That's not how we do it. Very professionally, what we did is there's statistics out there. Talos is the organization that does it, which is related to Cisco. And they'll put out 2 ratings. So quantity of email sent, good emails, and then quantity of bad emails sent. And then what I did is I did the ratio. So the countries on that list are the most spam for the least good emails. Because if we went straight up for just the most spam, USA would be first, and then China, but then Japan, France, Germany, and the UK would have been on the list of country to block, which makes no sense. So we went with the ratio of bad emails to good emails, and it came up with something that made sense, I think, for most North American companies. You're very much invited to go in and add and remove to that list. It is very easy. Very related, only allow emails in specific languages. So this is, again, a very simple Exchange filter. It works the other way. It is a whitelist. You can modify it to your art's content. You can add any language you want. But what we did is we put the language that is configured in your Office 365 tenant. So if you pick French, for example, it's going to have French. And then we added English to everybody just to make sure. So if you're a French tenant, then you'll have French and English by default. If you're English, meaning American, meaning English wherever, you'll have only English by default. But again, you can just go in, add more. The idea is very few legit email comes in a language that you don't speak. It's very unusual, and it does block some spam. By the way, I want to make sure I mention it, especially if they're listening, but even if they weren't, these last 2 were direct suggestion from a partner. That's what they did for their client, but they thought it was a pain in the ass, pardon my French again, to go in and set those languages and set those countries in. So they asked us if we could build it into Office Protect, and we thought it was a great idea, and we did. And the spam, the phishing one, was recommended by people after we were putting it in, but still very good recommendation. It validated the fact that we needed to put it in. So anybody that's listening that's using Office Protect, if you have feedback on features or settings that we should put in, please do. This last one as well is a recommendation from a partner. I love our partners. It's been such a great interaction with them working on Office Protect. Last one's a little bit more complex, but it makes a lot of sense. Restrict Exchange access, Exchange scripting access, sorry. So basically by default, PowerShell is turned on for every mailbox, meaning that you can connect through code and then execute commands that way. It's a way that some software will interact with Exchange, not most of it. For example, Outlooks, that's not it. Like that's not what it uses at all. What we offer you is the ability to turn that off. The reason that we offer it is that a lot of not viruses, but evil software, I should have the proper names, but ransomware and things like that, anything that interacts with Office 365 usually will try to do so in an automated fashion. So it'll break in. Once it's in, it's going to send a bunch of PowerShell commands to try execute things. This also applies to the desktop, by the way, if you want to disable PowerShell on your desktop, something you can look at or limit what it can do. So basically, we give you the ability to disable PowerShell for every mailbox that really doesn't need it. Take note that you may need it. You have to look at the software that you have that interacts with your mailboxes. You can test it. But the idea is if you don't need it, you should really remove it. It's one less vector that people can use to abuse your users and their account. So that's another good one. The second thing that Office Protect will do is monitoring and alerts. So basically, we subscribe to every source of information that we can from Office 365, and that's at least 5 feeds around Exchange, around overall Office, around Azure AD, SharePoint, and I'm missing one, don't remember which one. And the idea is those feeds are basically unreadable. If you're looking for a very specific event, you will probably find it. Let's say like Joe did this in SharePoint on that day very specifically. That's fine, you'll probably find it. But if you're just saying, hey, I'm gonna sit here and look at every event every day and find what's the problem, that's impossible. Like I've had no partners ever tell me, yeah, I just scan audit logs every day, no problem. I find the issues every time. So what we do is we scan them for you. And I don't mean like the internet hamster in his wheel, but I mean script and codes. And we've turned it into about 25 different events that we feel are much easier to understand and much more relevant to most of our clients. Some examples are, I think I have the whole list. Yeah, some example is if anybody changes your security policies, not through Office Protect, if somebody signs in from an unusual location, unknown device or IPs, suspicious mailbox activities, administrators that are abusing, that's one that comes back as, remember when I said insider threat? Administrators can go and read other people's email, they can send email being disguised as somebody else. Well, that will all be flagged by Office Protect. If it's a legit admin doing a legit thing, then that's fine, you can move on. But if somebody abusing the privilege, then it's good to know. You can see the listing of things. Sign in from unauthorized country is an interesting one. So sometimes we just flag directly for what's coming from Microsoft. So account deleted, for example, you can see here at the top. If we see an account deleted event, we'll let you know and give you the relevant information on it. But sign in from unauthorized country, for example, we've thrown some of our Office Protect magic on it, which is basically we'll look at login event, we'll look at the IP address, we'll turn that into a country, and then we'll compare it to the whitelist that you set into the application. By default, the whitelist will be, again, the country which your tenant is from. So if you have a US tenant, it'll be US by default. And then you can add any other country. If you're a multinational, you have offices everywhere, that's great. You can still configure it, it will work. But otherwise, if there's a login from Azerbaijan, then maybe you want to look into it. It's one of the ways that our partners show their value, things like that, is if they see an event like that, they'll call their customer, say, hey, Joe, I was looking over your tenant. You're my favorite tenant. I spent all day, every day on you. And I noticed there was login from Azerbaijan by Steve, the sales guy. That seemed odd. I just wanted to contact you. And then they'll say, yeah, there's a big sales conference in Azerbaijan. You didn't know that? And then that's fine. Or it'll say, no, I have no idea. Steve is sitting right there. And then you'll say, great, let me suspend the account and we'll do some investigation, turn on multi-factor authentication, something like that. In both cases, you've shown your value, you've shown that you're on top of things. And that's what our partners are finding to be very useful for Office Protect. Small investment as far as money, small investment in time, big value shown to their customers. So the monitoring profiles, we had originally just that for the settings. Now we have it for monitoring. There's a lot of configuration. So we've given you some defaults like no alerts, very focused, recommended, active, and everything on. You can again create custom profiles, apply them to every tenant, and apply change to every tenant. There's a little bit of an Easter egg in the everything on description. I'll let you look it up when you buy that product. Health status, I'll mention it quickly. It's the last section. It's new-ish. That's been around for a while, but it wasn't there in the beginning. So some of the stuff we realized they're not an event, they're not a setting, they're just a thing that is. So for example, I'll give you a specific example, it's easier. So global admin without alternate email, it's not something that happens, it's just something that is, and it's not a good idea because you could get locked out. So we put that in here. There's also the health of our service, monitoring user is active. That's if our user is active. Just FYI, our user is called SecMon. So why do we use SecMon? We want it to be generic, but not too generic, meaning it couldn't say SherWeb or Office Protect because we are invisible to your clients as much as possible. And at the same time, didn't want it to be just a random number or something like that because then nobody knows what it is and it creates problems. It now auto-fix itself for SherWeb clients. It will auto-fix itself, so that's good. So last part of Office Protect, nothing really new here, but the real-time reporting. All this stuff is good, but you need to share it with the world. So basically your clients, you need to be able to go see and investigate. This is all the events that have happened in Office Protect. You can search them, filter them, and then the nice thing is you can share them. So export as CSV, send by email, that should be used to communicate with your clients. I mentioned the ad hoc value. So when something happens, you call them, you let them know. Reporting, you can do it on a regular basis. What we've seen our more successful partners is they'll have touch point with their clients, which I'm assuming most people have. In those touch points, you should bring results from Office Protect and then discuss if there's anything suspicious, anything you want to discuss, anything your clients is uncomfortable with. That being said, on the monitoring, I went quickly. For the people that are new to Office Protect, there's alerts, which basically means we'll send you the event as soon as it happens, which roughly, to manage expectations, about half hour max since it happened. Depends on how long it takes Microsoft to put in their log and then when the next run of Office Protect is. And then we'll have a digest, which we'll send every week to you. So that's it as far as features. Quick slide on why you should use Office Protect. So we've designed it as a way to build and extend your Office 5 service offering. A lot of partners are asking us for ways to make Office 5 more than just a SKU. It is a very competitive environment, very easy for your clients. If you just sell them, hey, I'm selling you Office 5 Business Premium, it's easy for them to go somewhere else, to go to a website, to go wherever and compare a price and then haggle on 10 cents here and 5 cents there. And that is very annoying and very hard to profit from. The idea is if you wrap it into manage Office 365 or manage productivity or your overall managed services, then it becomes overall value and it's not apples to anything that's out there. It's your own distinct value and it makes more sense. The other reason is just the security aspect. We want to raise the baseline security for all your clients. You should as well. The idea is we use all the controls, all the features that are there and make sure that you're as high as far as security as possible even for any organization, even the people without compliance. And then the other one is it's gateway to more security conversation. I cannot stress this enough. This isn't meant to replace what I call the fancy security in Office 365. It has very much a place. A lot of your clients will need it. But what we've seen so far in the market is a lot of people are a little bit resistant to getting on board to those fancier SKUs. If you look at our stats, few SMBs are buying them. We feel that if you have Office Protect in place and it highlights some of the security events and all that stuff, it will really help get those conversations started. And when they say, well, this risk is not acceptable, that is a open hanger door to security conversation. Just to give you, before I go too much further, just on the value, I have very specific examples of partners that have been helped by Office Protect in practical cases. And the easiest sale every time, which is bad and good, it's great and terrible, is when people have security events happen, like an incident, and they don't have Office Protect or they don't have any security product. Then they're open for anything, and it will be the easiest sales you've ever made. We had a very specific case. So somebody transferred a client from on-premise to Office 365. I can't name, that's the problem with security product. It's very hard to get testimonials because nobody wants to admit to anything. So they were, and this is, like I said, honest to goodness example. I got it just a week ago. Somebody, an MSP, typical MSP, very typical to SherWeb, transferred a client on-premise Office 365, and God bless their heart, they had a conversation about Office Protect, but the client resisted the idea, didn't want it. A few months later, they had a very, very close call with a phishing email that asked to transfer money. Basically, they tried to transfer the money, but the account, the bank account in the request from the phishing email was wrong, like it didn't work. So when it didn't work, they looked into it and then realized, oh no, we basically almost got phished. The trouble thing was the email was coming internally. So basically what they did is they contacted their MSP and said, oh, what's happening? Like, we're having a problem, we think. And then I really like this partner. Partner said, well, I could investigate and everything, but the first thing that we'll do is we'll turn on Office Protect. You didn't want it last time, but I think now's the time. Client said, yes, please turn it on as soon as possible. And they did. And as soon as they turned it on, Office Protect started throwing events around account being logged in from either device that were unknown or locations that were not right. And then they knew which accounts had been broken in. They knew from where. They did the work, which was basically like they reset the password, turned on MFA, contacted the authorities, blah, blah, blah. But that was the easiest sale ever. Like, the client didn't even ask about the price at that point, like when they have security event. The second easiest to do it is really what I said, is to throw it into your managed services, do it from inception. So say, hey, I sell Office 5, but I do more than that. Don't fight the client on it being an upsell. The other way around, make it a differentiator, make it a plus, like make it something that makes you better. And then the last one case is the hardest one, is somebody that's already paying, they don't want to change the amount that they're paying. What we found there is really to use, and let me flip here, is to use our new bundles. So you can get Office Protect on any Office 365 tenant. It doesn't matter which one. It doesn't have to be with SherWeb, doesn't have to be even a CSP account. It can be an EA. It can be an EA on the government cloud. Office Protect will work. It doesn't matter. But I have to say, my best recommended way to get it is through the SherWeb Office 365 bundle. That bundle includes 3 things that you should have with every Office 365 engagement that you have, which is Office Protect, online backup, and then training, or e-learning, through Quick Help, which is our e-learning product. Basically, the reason to put that in is Office Protect will run for 30 days as part of any new subscription through this bundle. Online backup, you will get 1 gig of cloud backup for every user forever. And then you will get 45 days of end user training. It's not, you can use it as a partner, but it's not for you as a partner, it's for the end client. Combination of those things mean better security. You should at least use that 30 day to go in and set the best practice security setting. I mentioned, like, this is bare minimum. The reason it's bare minimum is part of the bundle. Like, why not use it? You should also use that 30 days to look at what the alerts are coming, and you can help secure the tenant. You can also show your value. It's the best way to sell the ongoing monitoring is when you could say, hey, look, there's all those things happening. There's all those things going on. It's helping us now, but I want to keep that visibility moving forward, which means I'm keeping Office Protect. Online backup, people often don't equate backups to security. It is absolutely security. It is the last line of defense. Securities layer, have a whole other hour of presentation around security. I don't think you want me to start this one here. But you have to have layers, and regardless of every layer that you have, it is always a possibility that somebody will get through. What you want to have is then a safety net, and that safety net is online backup. Against ransomware, what's the solution? Pay the ransom. That gives you, according to statistics, about 40% chance to recover your data. 60% chance you paid and you still don't have your data. That is not a good situation to be in. If you have a recent online backup that are functional, then you can just restore, not pay, and then you have your data back and you haven't paid. Which of those situations do you think makes you look better? And then Quick Help is really around, it's nice that you have Office 365. People know what Excel is, Word is, but if you want to have success with your Office 5 engagement, if you want people to see why you're different and your value, make them learn, and you should build a plan around that. Just come in, do some consulting, like attach fees to it. By all means, please attach fees to it. but make them learn the different services, especially the online services of Office 365. Show them how to integrate into OneDrive, how to use it, maybe build a simple SharePoint, Yammer, Delve, all that stuff. The more services people use, the less they churn, and that's true of managed service providers as well. So next step, few next steps. If you're not a partner, let me get this here. Sign up as a partner. Let's get started there. Other thing that you can do with Office Protect is our NFR program. If you are an active qualified partner of SherWeb, you can get it for 100% discount on your own organization to see how it works and how it helps you secure your own organization. That's the best way to start. And after that, like I said, start using our very unique Office 365 bundles. One thing I didn't mention that is very vital around the bundle, they're the same price. You remember this? Sorry for flipping the slides. This bundle is the exact same cost as our basic Office 365 plan. So you're asking me, what's the catch? No catch. That's it. You should use this. There is no reason not to use those bundles. Use them. And then after that, the question becomes around building your security offering, having those tough conversations with your client that will bring you a lot of value. So let me get to the questions. I see that we have a number. That's good. So there's a question around my stats around Office 365 being implemented in 91% of organization around over 100 people. And it says, are you saying that only 8% of people are still on premise? No, that's not what I'm saying. I think you'll find a lot of people have implemented partially Office 365. I think that stats is really put together to show a big number. So 91% have some installation, like some people using some feature of Office 365. I think the number on-premise or self-hosted Exchange is still higher than 8%. So I got a couple questions about the price of Office Protect. It is not free. It is not meant to be free. It is $1 a user a month, US. That is a lot less than any other SIAM or security product around Office 5. For example, EMS-E3 for Office 5 is $9 a user a month. The new identity protection, I think is the name of the SKU, is $12 a user a month. So the idea is at $1 a user a month, you should really be able to bring in the conversation. If you have, let's say, a 15 employee company that you're managing, that's $15 a month for security and monitoring. I mean, to me, it makes sense. To the partners we've talked to, it makes sense. What we've included for free, quote unquote, but what we've included into our bundle is 30 days. And that is apply your security settings and have a look at what the events are throwing. Security settings you keep forever, obviously. At the end of the 30 days, we're not reverting whatever security setting you put in. That'd be very, very bad. So the value that SherWeb is giving you, giving everybody that are partners with us, is going in and applying those security settings, getting an idea of what's going on. The online backup you keep forever, the gig, you'll pay for anything that you use over that gig per user. So if you have 10 users, you have 10 gig, you do whatever you want with it. You don't have to use it on single user, or you don't have to use it to back up Office 365. Use it for whatever you want. And then quick help, the idea is 45 days of training. Obviously, at the end of the 45 days, you do not lose the knowledge that you've given your staff. They'll be much better with Office 5 after 45 days. There's a lot of value. Most of our partners are building either fees or making it part of their monthly fee to give that initial training and to ramp up the people, and they see a lot of value there. So one of the feedback is, so I'm getting feedback. I don't think I'll go into sharing the feedback so much, but be aware that, very aware of the feedback that is given. Office 5 without Exchange Online. Is Office true? Oh, that's a good question. So I'm being asked, is Office Protect still relevant if I have Office 365 without Exchange Online? So I think it depends which SKU. So if you have just Exchange Pro Plus, that's getting a bit limited because there's none of the online services. Just about everything else, there is some value. If you have Office 5 just business, which is just the suite. You'd have to have a look at it. It will work fine, but some of the settings definitely won't apply. Office Protect is not an email protection, it's an Office 365 protection, so there is much more there. Definitely for stuff like Exchange Online Plan 1, Business Premium for sure, and anything else, E1, it's a perfect fit. When you get to E5, for example, it's a lot less relevant unless you buy E5 and you don't use it, meaning that for E5 to do its job, you have to go in and configure a bunch of things. Those things are great. Like the features are great. It's very, very good. It's much more wide and granular than Office Protect. But if you don't set it up, it's useless. That's the thing with security. Often people buy it as a check mark, like, yes, I'm compliant because I have E5. Make sure you go in and you set it up. Very, very important, and also a great opportunity for you to sell your services. But if you have something like E5, I probably wouldn't get Office Protect myself. So that is the time. Actually, this was supposed to be a half hour, so I went completely over. If you have more questions, or if I didn't answer your question in the presentation, we will pick it up and contact you directly. Looking forward also to people giving it a shot. Like I said, it's available through the bundle. It's available through our NFR program. No real reason for you not to go in and at least have a look. If you have a look and it's not for you, let me know. Let me know why. So far, we've had great success, but I want to make sure I get a realistic feedback. If anybody doesn't like it, if you feel it could be improved by X, Y, or Z, please do contact us. Contact me directly, contact your account representative. And thank you for coming.